Hey there! Welcome back to the Happy Chicken Coop YouTube channel. Thanks for joining us. Did you know that 70% of the cost of raising chickens goes toward feed? Therefore, it stands to reason that you need to pay attention to what you feed your birds. So, in this video, let's talk about how to feed your chickens. No one chicken is the same as each breed. All require slightly different mixes of nutrition, as do laying birds or meat birds. Let's start at the beginning, work our way through the ages and types of chicken, and look at how you should feed your chickens. But before that, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel and give our website, thehappychickencoop.com, a visit for more backyard raising content. Let's start off with chicken nutritional requirements. As with humans and other mammals, chickens need a slightly different nutritional input as they grow. Young chicks need more protein to grow rapidly during their first few weeks. Please note that most, if not all, feed producers have a table on the back of the feed sack to give guidelines for appropriate feeds, so make sure to check that out. For broiler chicken owners, how should you feed them? Broiler chicks, or those who are bred for meat, must put weight on fast, ready for slaughter at around 14 weeks. Their feed is high in protein to enable the chick to develop and put weight on rapidly. They are fed a broiler starter for the first 3 weeks, which is 22% protein. They are changed to finisher feed at 4 weeks old, which contains 19% protein. So how to feed layer chicks then? Layer chicks get chick starter feed up to 6 weeks of age. Chick starter feed usually is around 20% protein. They still need higher protein but are growing less rapidly than the broiler chicks. They are then changed to grower feed at 6 weeks, which is 17 to 18% protein until about 20 weeks. A high protein level is required at this age for the bird to fully develop into a good layer. They can be changed to a layer ration of 16 to 18% protein at 20 weeks or so. Your pullets should be thinking about laying some eggs for you at this age. Personally, I let my girls stay on layers ration permanently. The correct feed must be given to your layers since the calcium requirements differ from chick to pullet. You can feed older birds higher protein and offer extra calcium through ground oyster shells or crushed eggshells. Still, you should not give younger birds a layer ration. Layer ration contains a higher level of calcium than they need, and too much calcium at a young age can lead to kidney failure. As you can see from the perspective of protein and calcium requirements alone, it would be a daunting task to mix your own feed. Chickens require 38 different dietary nutrients to be in the best of health. Feed companies have animal health nutritionists to work out formulae for any number of animals at any given age. Poultry is no exception. The feed they produce has been scientifically formulated, is complete nutrition, and is reasonably priced to give you the best bang for your buck. Now that you know what to feed your chickens, the next sensible question would be, how often should you feed them? This is really a personal preference in most cases, and there are two schools of thought. You can either do free choice or fixed feeding. The free choice is probably best if you have a busy schedule throughout the day. But if you're available at set times of the day, you could go with fixed feeding. Let's talk about the pros and cons of each feeding techniques. In free choice feeding, all your birds get a chance to eat because bully birds can't guard the feeders all day long. Your chickens can also eat little and frequently, and this is more natural for them. It's also less work for you, the keeper. You can just top up their feeders once a day and you're good to go. On the other hand, free choice feeding may attract more rodents than you or your chicks would want. If the feed is outside, it can also get wet and moldy, and we know that's not good for them. In fixed feeding time, there will sure be less wastage for rodents and other pests to feast on, and your birds are sure not to overeat. The disadvantage here, however, is your chooks may squabble over feeders. Some can definitely get bullied. It's also somewhat inflexible since you have to be consistent with the times you feed them. Personally, I feed my flock as a free choice. This way, I find it more flexible. I just top off the feeders in the evening so they have plenty to eat when they wake up. I also have a better idea of when I need to buy more feed. Just remember that if you're raising broilers, they will need to have access to food 24 hours a day in order to put on weight. They will, of course, need lights to eat by. Now, what are the types of feed you can give your chickens? There are basically 3 types of feeds you can choose from: organic, medicated or non-medicated, and fermented. Let's begin with the organic feed. Organic feed is more expensive and usually a bit more difficult to find. If, however, you want to be sure that your birds do not have access to GMO feed, or you're going to be certified as an organic farm, you need to use organic feed then. Organic feed does not contain antibiotics, animal byproducts, persistent pesticides, or chemical fertilizers. Hormones are also also prohibited by federal regulations. The second type is either medicated or non-medicated feed. The medicated starter is treated with amprolium and sometimes antibiotics to help as a preventative against coccidiosis. That means if your chicks have been vaccinated against coccidiosis, you should not give them a medicated starter. On a personal note, I do not use medicated feed. My chicks are kept separate in clean quarters, so I would say the risk of coccidiosis is small. They are introduced to the outside world slowly to develop their immunity to coccidiosis. The non-medicated, on the other hand, is pretty much self-explanatory. They're the usual feeds you would buy in stores. The last one you can consider is fermented feed. Many chicken keepers actually choose this for their flock. Any feed or grain you can give your hens can be fermented. In its simplest form, you can just add water, a little apple cider vinegar, and around a quarter teaspoon of yeast to the feed and store it in a suitable container, just not one made of metal. Over about 3 to 4 days, your feed will smell vaguely like sourdough. At this stage, it is ready for your chickens to eat. Proponents of fermented feed say that it is more cost-effective and the bag of feed stretches much further. Why is this so? The fermentation process of grains releases many of the locked-in nutrients. Seeds have a tough outer coating to survive in a hostile environment until the time is right to germinate. Fermenting tricks the seeds into giving up their locked-in goodness. We have yet to try fermented food here, but it's definitely something that we want to try next spring. When feeding your chickens, the first and foremost that you should consider is their nutritional needs. You will need to give your birds some more things on top of their regular feed. One of the nutrients they need is calcium. You can give this in the form of crushed oyster shells, which should be available from the feed store. Calcium assists the hen in laying a hard-shelled egg. Soft shells indicate a lack of calcium. You can also feed eggshells back to the girls. I cook my eggshells in a low-heat oven for about 30 minutes or so. This helps to destroy any salmonella that may be lurking in the shell. Then I just crush them up and add them to the oyster shell feeder. Chickens also need grit to help grind down their food. You can buy grit from the feed store. In fact, they can also make chick-sized grit for your littles. Another thing you should give them are greens. If your hens are pastured, they will be supplied with all the greens they need for a complete diet. If you cannot pasture them, cabbage leaves, kale, and broccoli, among others, can supply the necessary green nutrition. And lastly, kitchen scraps. Squash seeds, tomatoes, melon rind, etc. Anything from your kitchen that your chickens can safely eat makes the best snacks. Just make sure to watch our videos or read our articles about the many things chickens can or cannot eat. All of this is a moot point if you don't have the right feeders for your chickens, because a wrong feeder will cause wasted feed and spread disease amongst your flock. As you know, chickens love to roost on everything, even on top of feeders if possible. And if you've seen the area under their roost, you know that the droppings will pile up. So your feeder must prevent chickens from roosting above the feed, thus bathing in it or tossing it all over the coop. Specific poultry feeders are your best bet because they discourage waste and keep feed clean. Look for feeders that have moving parts to prevent roosting. You should also consider feeders that have small access areas that prevent chickens from scratching at their feed and throwing it everywhere it doesn't belong. As you can see, there are several choices for your birds: chick starter feed, layer chicken feed, or broiler chicken feed. As long as they're healthy and active, there really isn't a right or wrong in your choice of feed. And remember, what works for me may not work as well for you. I hope you learned something from this video. If you do, please don't forget to give this a thumbs up and share with your friends. Please help us make more content by subscribing to our YouTube channel and visiting our website at thehappychickencoop.com. That's it for us today, and we'll talk to you soon.